Peoples of the worldwide federated internet, what's good? Sometime when I read my Bible, I feel like I'm on a fact-finding mission. And in a lot of ways, I am. I want to know what the Bible says about a certain issue, and I try my best to go in to actually find out and figure out what the Bible teaches. I've been going through the book of Jonah, and I've read the book of Jonah before several times, and I've read it several times over the past couple days. Noticed some things in it, and I hope to maybe share a little bit of that study with you. And also, I like to say, and I always say this, I am not infallible. I do not think that everything I say is a law, nor do I think everything I say is 100% right. I'm just a dude. I'm just a guy with a thought, sharing my thoughts on the internet concerning the Bible. That's it. I definitely do not assume nor think that I know everything. But one thing I kind of wanted to talk about was something else that's been on my mind a lot. It's the book of Romans chapter 8, verse 28. Now, I know as soon as I gave that reference, there are people out there who immediately that Bible verse started rattling through your brain. So anyway, let's get to this. In the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, the Bible says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." Now, this would be what I consider a verse that's used very widely amongst the name it, claim it crowd. And for those of us who've been saved for any length of time, and even some unbelievers, I'm sure you've heard of this position. And it's people that believe, oh, you just pray about it and God's gonna give it to you. That's not that's not biblical. Not everything you pray about you're gonna get. That's not how this works. People have this view of God like God is a genie in a bottle, just looking to give them everything they want, every earthly desire they have, and that's just not the case. Some prayers you're gonna pray, and you're not gonna get the answer that you're thinking you're gonna get. Paul had an infirmity that he prayed about 3 times. And you know what God said? My grace is sufficient. He didn't take it away. Whatever that infirmity was, he told Paul, nah, you gonna hold that. My grace is sufficient. So, but anyway, looking at this verse, and like I said, it's been quoted many times. So a lot of times in the Bible, there are historical accounts in the Bible that bear out the truth of a verse or Bible principle. And I want to go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 24, and I want to read verses 1 through verse 7. The Lord showed me, and behold, 2 baskets of figs were set before the temple of the Lord, after that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away captive Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and the princes of Judah, with the carpenters and smiths from Jerusalem, and had brought them to Babylon. 1 basket had very good figs, even like the figs even like that are first ripe. The other basket had very naughty figs, which could not be eaten. They were so bad. Then said the Lord unto me, What seest thou, Jeremiah? And I said, Figs. The good figs, very good. The evil, very evil, that cannot be eaten. They are so evil. Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, like these good figs, so will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah, whom I have set out of this place unto the land of the Chaldeans for their good. For I will set mine eyes upon them for good, and I will bring them again to this land, and I will build them and not pull them down, and I will plant them and not pluck them up, and I will give them an heart to know me, that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return unto me with their whole heart. So notice in this situation, bad things happen, but God worked those bad things, what seemed to be bad things, right? They were taken into captivity, right? They're going through some trials, things that we would consider bad things. And through that, God said, hey, I'm going to work. I'm going to bring them back. And not only am I going to do that, I'm going to make sure I'm going to draw these people closer to me. The Bible says in verse 7, and I will give them an heart to know me, that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return unto me with their whole heart. With their whole heart, they're going to return. With that in mind, we'll go back to the book of Romans, chapter 8, and we'll read verse 28 and verse 29. The Bible says, and we know that all things work together. I want you to notice two things in this verse. For good, right? So all things, no matter what it is going to work together for good. For everybody, no. To them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose, not ours, his purpose. Let that sink in. And in verse 29, the Bible says, so it's going to show you what this purpose is. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that we might be the firstborn among many brethren. Now, what most people do, I know I did, and I do this a lot sometimes, and when I do this, I miss what a verse is saying. So you'll see certain words and your mind will automatically go to different doctrinal issues. Like, for instance, I know when I read this verse, as soon as I read the word foreknow and the word predestinate, immediately people's minds went to these other doctrinal issues, different disagreements within the Christian world on doctrinal issues. But I'm not going to get off on that tangent. I'm going to deal with this verse. So the word foreknow means to have previous knowledge. Now I want to think about that. A preacher said this one time. I can't remember what preacher it was, so this is not my quote. I'm not the author of this quote. He said, "Has it ever occurred to you that nothing has ever occurred to God?" Now think about that. Is your existence a surprise to God? Is God surprised that you are on the planet Earth? God knew you before you were born. Your beginning and your ending. God sees and knows all of that all at once. The word predestinate means to predetermine or foreordain, to appoint or ordain beforehand by unchangeable purpose. Now think about that. The Bible says, whom he foreknew, he also did predestinate. Predestinate to what? To be conformed to the image of his Son, that we might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called, and whom he called, them he also justified, and whom he justified, them he also glorified. What shall we say then to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? But what's the purpose of Romans 8:28? Right? What all things work together for good um to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. What's God's purpose? That we be conformed to the image of his Son. This is what God's trying to work, right? So sometimes I think when things happen in our lives, we tend to look at them from our vantage point, and this is what I mean by that. We look at things that happen and we say, all right, so this happened and that happened. God, I know you're going to work some things out, and I know I'm going to get this job, and I know I'm going to get, this house, or I know I'm going to get that pay raise. I know you're just going to work everything out, to my benefit. Somehow you're going to work it out. When we look at this verse, I think what we need to do is stop looking at it from our vantage point and start looking at it from God's vantage point. Instead of looking at, well, what am I going to get out of this? Let's look at it with verse 29 in mind. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son. In this situation that God is working, whatever it is, what is God trying to get out of me? Whether there's something I need to change, like something is wrong, something I need to remove, something I need to add, what is God trying to get out of me, instead of looking at verse 28 as what can I get out of God? In verse 31, the Bible says, what shall we say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? I want to go to something. I want to go to the book of Psalms, chapter 46, Psalm 46, 1 through 3. Now peep this. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. Remember that. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, because God is our refuge and strength and a very present help in trouble, therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Selah. There's much debate over what that word Selah means. Some people think it means pause. Some people think it means other things. Not even going to get into that. That's a scholarly argument. Definitely not for me. Maybe when I grow a little more in the Lord, I can have that scholarly argument, but I'm definitely not on that level. In the book of Psalms, again, 27, verses 1 through 3, the Bible says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. Now, when I read verses like that, now there's some books in the Bible that there's disputes over who wrote the book, and people go back and forth about certain things. And then there's books that we know for a fact who wrote what, right? Like this is a Psalm of David. What's the significance of that? So what I've been doing, especially lately when I'm reading my Bible, I'm getting into the habit of saying, okay, God inspired a specific person to write this book. So with that in mind, let me think about this person and their experiences, because there's a reason God used this person. So this is David, right? Let's think about that. Who's David? If you go to I was gonna read it, but this would take the video too long if I read this. But if you go to 1 Samuel chapter 17, this is David, right? So David's father, Jesse, sends David to take his brothers some food. They're on a front line. There's a battle, you know, getting ready to happen between the Philistines and Israel, right? So David goes down there, and as he goes down there, this Philistine, Goliath, tall giant, steps to the front of the crowd talking mad greasy to Israel. And David, now remember, the Bible says that David was a man after God's own heart. David was like, yo, who's this uncircumcised Philistine defying the armies of the living God? Like, yo, y'all, like nobody getting ready to step to him? What's good? Right? So David's brother's like, yo, what are you even doing here? It's a great chapter to read. I love these Bible accounts because when you compare them against different things that's said in the Bible, man, you start to see all kind of stuff. But anyway, so David goes to Saul and he's like, yo, I'm gonna take on this Philistine. Now, I don't know exactly how old David is. I don't think it was said in the book of 1 Samuel 17. Maybe it was, but I don't think it was. But he's pretty young as far as I can tell. So Saul is like, all right, let's have a go at it. So he starts arming him up. David's like, nah, I don't need none of this armor. I got my weapon. I got this sling and I got my 5 smooth stones he grabs up. Now, if you read the account, the Bible says David runs out there to meet Goliath. Like this dude is super confident. Slays Goliath, takes his head off. The armies of Israel chase down the Philistines. I'm sure as a result, people got closer to God. People saw God work in a mighty way. But here's another thing. So in that story, one thing that David said before he ran down there, he was talking. I believe he was when he was talking to Saul, he was like, "Yo, I'm a shepherd. A lion and a bear came up against the sheep. I went and got them back. God allowed me to slay the lion and the bear." Because David was pulling from past experiences where God delivered him, those past experiences gave him confidence in God. What's the significance of that? Where did David come from? David is the son of Jesse, who's the son of Obed, who is the son of Ruth. Why does that matter? If you read the book of Ruth, which I admonish you go do, there was a famine in the land of Judah. Elimelech and his wife Naomi, Elimelech went to Moab to feed his family. Now we can all make our judgments and say he shouldn't have gone. He was out of the will of God. I don't know what I would have done, right? If I was Elimelech, I probably would have done the same thing. There's no food. There's a famine. I'm taking my family to where there's food, right? So I can't judge the man, right? I don't know what was in the man's heart. Can't say. He dies while they're in Moab. Ruth has 2 sons. They marry Moabite women. Now, I know for a fact they weren't supposed to marry those women, but they did. Her 2 sons died, right? So Ruth is like, yo, I've been stripped of everything. I'm returning to my land and my God. I don't know what's going on. I need to return. One of the wives of one of her sons goes back to her people and her gods. Ruth, I'm inclined to believe that Ruth accepted the true and living God, the most high God of heaven and earth. She put her trust and her faith in that God. So Ruth says to Naomi, nah, I'm coming with you. I'm wherever you going, I'm going. They get back to Judah. Bunch of things happen. Like I said, go read the book of Ruth. I'm just summarizing. Ruth marries one of Naomi's kinsmen, and they have Obed, her son. Obed has Jesse, Jesse has David. From troublesome situations, from tragedy, God delivers the children of Israel out of trouble. Not riches. They didn't get a bunch of riches and they didn't get a bunch of land and a bunch of things, but he delivers them out of trouble from another tumultuous, troublesome situation. God delivers them. Sometimes I think we look at situations and we're trying to, because I know I've done it, right? I'm looking at a situation like, all right, God's going to bring me through this and I'm probably going to have this and I'm probably going to have that. What I've started doing is correcting my vision and saying to myself, all right, things are not going as good as I would like them to go. What is God trying to work? What is God trying to get out of me? Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect with this, and I'm not saying I do this every time, but I've made a conscious effort now looking into situations saying, all right, this is not the optimal situation. Things might be falling apart. I don't know what's going on, but let me look internally and see what God is trying to get out of me. Is God trying to add something to my life that I need, remove something that I don't need? What is God trying to get out of me? Because I know in all of these things, God is conforming me to the image of his son. God is drawing me closer to him. The closer I draw to God, the closer he draws to me. Draw nigh to God and he will draw nigh to you. Sometimes I think we're looking at God. We look at the most high God of heaven and earth, how we look at as kids, how we looked at a figure like Santa Claus, like, what can I get? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Instead of saying, what is God trying to get out of me? Simple thought, as I always say, it may not mean much to you, but it definitely meant a lot to me. Y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.